Good evening, I'm Brandon, and I'm here to talk about bicycle helmet safety. To start off, I have a question. How many of you wear a helmet when you ride a bicycle? Well, I'm here to say that helmets don't provide, or helmets fail to substantially increase bike safety. And I have three reasons for that. The first reason is that wearing bike helmets create a false sense of security. My second reason is that the public perception greatly exaggerates the safety provided by helmets. And my third reason is that bicycle helmet laws are ineffectual at reducing injury. So back to my first point, that wearing bike helmets creates a false sense of security. One way this is seen is in that helmeted riders ride riskier than non-helmeted. What that means really is that they ride faster and take more risk than if you weren't wearing a helmet. It's called risk compensation. There actually is a study done by one researcher that when you wore a helmet to work versus when you didn't wear a helmet, you'd go 1 mile per hour faster. And while that's not much, it still increases the rate of injury, or likely rate of injury. And secondly, even bigger than that, is that cars drive measurably closer to helmeted riders than non-helmeted. In many studies done, cars drive 3 to 5 inches closer to a helmeted rider than a non-helmeted rider. For some reason, putting a piece of plastic on your head makes it easier for cars to potentially injure you or even kill you. And then, that's in multiple studies all across the world. And then as a result of this helmet increased wearing is proper bicycling skills have been shunned in favor of the helmet. Like the main reason people die on bicycles isn't because they're not wearing a helmet. Like a helmet does help somewhat in decreasing injury, but actually cars generally, they kill I can't give you the exact stat, but 80% of deaths are a result from car collisions. And that shows that the responsibility of safety wrongly falls completely on the bicyclists and away from the car. And then my second main point is that public perception greatly exaggerates the safety provided by helmets. The critical impact velocity of the helmet, according to Bell Helmets, the main manufacturer of helmets, is 12 miles per hour. What that means is if you crash going faster than 12 miles per hour, your helmet will completely break, not just fracture. And helmets aren't designed to absorb much impact if they completely break, so all that force is going straight to your skull. And the biggest stat I found, according to bicyclesafe.com and cyclehelmets.org, which are the premier safety sources, is that 90% of all bicycle injuries, the ones that end up in the hospital, are a result from car collisions. And so regardless of if you're wearing a helmet or not, getting hit by a car, you're still going to get injured. Again, the helmet may help reduce injury on one part of your whole body, but it's not going to stop injury. And one metaphor I kind of came up with is the helmet in today's world is like wearing a seatbelt in a car and driving that car regardless of knowing how to drive the car. And that's also seen in my third point, that bicycle helmet laws are ineffectual at reducing injury. According to the New York Times, since the introduction of helmet laws in the U.S., ridership has decreased, meaning less people ride, but the rate of injuries has increased. So even though there's less people riding, there's still more people getting hurt. And while that doesn't mean the helmets directly cause the injuries, it's more like that false sense of security and the exaggerations on the safety by helmets leads to those injuries. As well as, since there's less riders, cars are less used to seeing bikers, so they're not as well equipped, you could say, to just go around a biker when they pass them. Yeah. And on the international scale, according to the New York Times, countries with the lowest amount of helmet laws, such as Denmark or Holland or the Netherlands, have the highest amount of ridership and less injuries. So, since the purpose of helmet laws is to reduce injury and make it a safer environment for riders, but injury, it's increased since the introduction of these laws. You can see that bicycle laws are ineffectual at reducing injury. So I used 3 different points that wearing bike helmets creates a false sense of security, that the public perception greatly exaggerates the safety provided by helmets, and that bicycle laws are ineffectual at reducing injury, to show that ultimately bike helmets fail to substantially increase bike safety. And when I say that, I don't mean you shouldn't wear a helmet. I just mean that they don't provide the safety you probably think they do, which is only one person. Thank you.
All right, well, I think you might be hedging yourself out of an argument toward the end when you're saying, I don't think you should avoid wearing a helmet, and it basically comes down to it doesn't help you quite as much as you think it might. That's the argument. How much does the average person think a helmet is going to improve their safety? I think that your position is that people make an overwhelming assumption that their safety is substantially improved by the bike helmet, and I think you need to back that up a little bit more. The theories that you explain on the first point are fine. The documentation on it I thought was a little bit thin, and you didn't really provide source citations on that information. Later on, you had some good statistics about international comparisons, for instance, on the third point, and I thought you did a little bit better job on that. All of the explanations are pretty solid, so we kind of understand where you're going on these things. For instance, the argument on causality, that it's caused by the cars, well, nobody thinks that the accidents are caused by the helmets per se, but the question then becomes, if you're hit by a car and you're wearing a helmet, are you substantially safer than if you were hit by a car and weren't wearing a helmet? And that's kind of where I think the argument gets to be problematic, because you're not very clear on what your position is on that issue. I thought you did a very good job identifying what your proposition was and what the secondary claims were. It's very nicely structured. You signpost as you're going through the presentation. You have good audience contact while you're speaking. Maybe you could project your voice a little bit more occasionally. Like I said, I thought that the information was inconsistent. Sometimes it sounds pretty solid. Sometimes I'm not getting the source citations that I wanted. I thought that it sounds like you've got data on this, but it's not getting as much into the speech as it ought to. A little bit better on the second and third points. All right, thank you.